This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to day 3 of the mobile hacking and security course. Over the last couple of days, we've looked at a lot of different vectors into the mobile devices. We'll be looking at least one more today, or two, or three, or four, and then we'll look at best practices. This is a mobile hacking and security. All right. So we'll look a little bit at how if you're tasked with trying to secure a mobile environment, what are the best practices? And we've talked a little bit about some of those. There are some things that there's nothing you can do about, right? So if somebody like does an SS7 attack against you, I mean, that's up to the carrier to handle that, right? Or if somebody puts in a Stingray, there's really not much you can do, all right? But you have to do what you can do, right? And there are things that you can do to secure your mobile environment. One of the things that came up yesterday, we were talking about the SS7 attacks, okay, which are actually pretty prevalent right now among cyber crime, okay? And they're using them to obtain the second factor in two-factor authentication, which is oftentimes, and lots of people are using it. The banking system is using it. Facebook is using it. Gmail is using it. I think Proton Mail is using it. When you sign up for Proton Mail, they send it a second factor to your phone, new accounts, right? And a number of other people are using it as a second factor. And so, what happens is that the cyber crime is being able to intercept those SMS attacks by entering through the SS7 in the cellular network and being able to pick up those the second factor authentication. And as part of that, Storm, okay, had asked, yesterday about, well, who's paying attention there? Who's would prosecute? I pointed out that it was illegal, right? And he asked, well, who's doing that? Who's monitoring that? And really, nobody is, okay, for the most part, except for maybe the cellular carriers, okay. But this is an interface between cellular carriers, so it kind of falls between the cracks. But it's important to note that it is illegal. So last night I went and looked to see what law it would violate, okay, to give you some idea. And so we want to make clear that we're not advocating breaking any laws, right? But in the US, okay, the law is USC, okay, US code, okay, title 47, right, section 302A, all right? And in that law, in that section, it says that this is written in 1992. So it says within 180 days after October 28th, 1992, the Commission, this is talking about the FCC, the Commission shall prescribe and make effective regulations denying equipment authorization, okay, for any scanning receiver that is capable of A, receiving transmissions in a frequency allocated to domestic cellular radio telecommunications service, cell service, right? Readily being altered by the user to receive transmissions, okay, in such frequencies, or C, being equipped with decoders that convert digital cellular transmissions to analog voice audio, okay? So it's pretty old law, 26 years old, right? It was actually written in 1992. It became effective in 1993. So any attack against the SS7, any attack against the cellular service at all, right, is illegal, and it would be breaking federal law in the U.S. And that's pretty serious stuff. Most cyber attacks are prosecuted under federal law. Okay, and so if one were caught attacking the system. And usually what happens is that people don't necessarily get detected hacking the SS7 system. It's all Kevin's fault. Yeah. People don't necessarily get attacked, but if they get caught in some kind of cyber crime, what happens is the prosecutors and the investigators, they go and look at all the activity. So once they have, once they found the person and they found their computer and what have you, then they can trace all the activities. And this would be just one more crime that they would tack on to the prosecution. It's unlikely that somebody would look at this and go, oh, we see somebody has penetrated the SS7 system. No, it would be more like somebody has been stealing credit card numbers or PII, and oh, we caught them, and we see that they are also cracking the SS7 system. Okay. So it is illegal. Let's be clear on it. One of the offshoots of this law is that security researchers, okay, people who search for vulnerabilities for a living, cannot access the cellular services. Okay, you can go ahead and you can work on trying to find flaws and vulnerabilities in Adobe Flash or Google Chrome or Microsoft Office, but you can't look at the cell service. Okay, and that's kind of an antiquated way of looking at things. I mean, that's the way people looked at their applications 20 years ago, right? But not today. Now we have like bug bounty programs where people are inviting you to find problems with it. They found that that's a more effective way, okay, to be able to secure their applications. And yet the cell services are still stuck in this idea. Nobody can touch our cell service, okay? Partly probably because they know how vulnerable it is, right? I mean, if you got an app and you put out an app and you know it's full of vulnerabilities, you don't want to have a bug bounty program, right? Yeah, if you know that it's not secure, you're not going to let people go ahead and try to test its security. All right. If you're pretty sure that it's secure and you've done all your due diligence and you've done all your work yourself, and you go, oh, I think we've found all the obvious vulnerabilities, then you go ahead and start a bug bounty program. If you know your service is bad, it's vulnerable, you don't invite people to come in. So this law still keeps people from testing the security and the vulnerabilities of the cell service, which are considerable. Okay. So with that having been said, one of the ways that we were looking at being able to attack the mobile device is to create malicious apps. In all reality, according to Google's own data, the most common attack against mobile devices is malicious apps. Okay, that has been the most successful attack against the Android operating system. So we're going to focus a little more on that today, and we're going to log into our Kali here. Hopefully, there we go. All right, and I'm going to open up another terminal, and we're going to download and use an application that is designed specifically to embed backdoors into apps. All right. And once again, it's easy to embed backdoors in apps. It's quite another thing to be able to get it past Google or past the AV software. But a lot of people don't have AV software on their machines. Okay, this one's called Evil Droid. It's one more that's not in our Kali. So we're going to have to go ahead and download it. All right, so I'll give you the URL here just a second. All right, let's clear my screen. And this one takes a little while to download. So let's get it going, and we can all go take a little coffee break while it downloads. HTTPS, and it's at GitHub. But this is, of those attacks against the Android operating system, backdoors, malware embedded in apps is the most common attack against Android. Okay, so that's why we're focusing on it. SC3R4N0, and it's called Evil Droid. Right, gotta get that capital R out of there. We should be good. Let's see. Coming back and asking me, probably is a typo again. Okay, let me go check out what I've done here. All right. Okay, git clone https github.com M4SC. I did a typo. Should be a 3 there. And then an R, then a 4, then N0 evil droid. Okay, good. There we go. Oh, that was pretty quick. That was really quick. Okay. So let's go ahead, and we should have a directory called Evil Droid now. And there it is. Okay. Let's go and navigate to Evil Droid. And look inside there. And you can see there's an app in there called Evil Droid. So what we need to do, notice that we don't have any permission, okay? No execute permission, so we got to change that. Mod 755. Once again, it has to be odd numbers. What you can put in any odd number, that'll do it, right? Because the X counts for 1, okay, in each one of these fields. So all the others are even numbers. So anytime you're adding in an execute permission, you're going to get a odd number. So then go Evil Droid. Hopefully we have all of the libraries we need and all the dependencies. We'll find out soon. Gotta spell it right again. Evil, not Evid, Evil Droid. Okay. And then all we need to do is to go ahead and run it. I should use the tab key to autocomplete. Keep me from making so many typos. Okay. So first thing it does is it starts checking to see if you have everything that it needs. Okay. So first of all, it checks to see if you have internet access. Yeah, we do. Okay. And then it finds that we didn't have the AAPT, so it's going ahead and downloading that. So it's a pretty efficient little tool. It doesn't make you go ahead and run it with and say, oh, you don't have such and such. Okay, it's not. You don't have all the dependencies. So it goes ahead and finds the dependencies for you and installs them. And this will take a little time. Okay, it's still getting what it needs. Zip-align wasn't found, so now it's getting it. So this is what I was referring to about taking a while to set up. But the beauty of it is that it does it all automatically for you. And like we were saying yesterday, with some of the other apps that we're using, is that everybody's trying to use or does use something that looks like, okay, Metasploit. All right, so that's become the standard of kind of command line tools of how to set it up. And so when it's all done installing, okay, and I'll pause a little bit here and let everybody get it set up. It asks you, it says execute framework and services. So I'll give you a couple minutes to get it all set up, and then we'll go ahead and run it. Actually, if you go ahead and just click yes, and I'll stop there, okay? Then goes ahead and it starts all the services that you need, okay? Starts the database, starts Apache. That's a nice little tool. It sets everything up. And then it comes up with this interface right here, okay? Yeah, Space Invaders from what, 1970s or 80s? I don't remember when the Space Invaders was. But it's been a while. Is the 80s? Okay. Yeah, 70s would be too early because we only had PCs come out in the 70s and the 80s, and yeah, we got all the games came out, and they were all pretty simple games in terms of the graphics. Okay, I'm going to pause right here. Let me know when you're ready to roll. Okay. His first language is not English, Andrew. So you see right here, it's a plate form. I think he's Italian. I'm not sure though. Yeah, it's. Notice that when we did his GitHub, it was um, this is his name, okay, Maserano. I don't know what his ethnicity is or what country he's from, but his first language is not English. Everybody set? Should we move forward? You know, unlike a lot of tools that you know, make you go ahead and do separate installs for all the dependencies, what have you, I like the fact that he's got this all set up. It checks to see if all the dependencies are there. It starts all the services for you. Basically, you don't really have to do anything except for start it and then, you know, follow directions. All right. And one of the dependencies is Metasploit. Okay. So what it'll do is that it'll go ahead then and try to use Metasploit to embed a backdoor into an Android app. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. And let's go. I'm going to backdoor an original APK. Right. In this case, let's do a new one. Right. This is something that's brand new. We've created an app and we want to go ahead and embed a backdoor into it. So let's go ahead and go number 3. All right. And then it goes and asks you, you know, what IP address you want to use. You can either use your public IP or your local IP. Let's go ahead and use the local IP. Okay. What port do you want to use? Well, you know, you might want to use, this is the default port for the reverse HTTP. I mean, yeah, reverse TCP payload in Metasploit. And if you wanted to use something different that, you know, everybody knows that this is the default port, and it's very seldom is it open on the firewall. So we might want to make a change here, as we did yesterday. We were looking at the possibility of creating HTTPS, okay, payload. So that means that if you choose an HTTPS payload, it looks like HTTPS traffic. So let's do that again, all right? And that is a good chance that that port is open, right? The firewalls probably has port 53 maybe for DNS, right? Probably has port 80 open for HTTP, probably, most likely. It probably has port 443 open for HTTPS. It may have other ports as well, but at the minimum, it's probably going to have two of those three. Good chance it has port 443. Very good chance. Might have port 445, right, for SMB. But let's go ahead and do that. And then it's got to give it a name. Let's call it Hackers Arise Payload. Right. And we were talking about using a payload that was HTTPS. We had chosen to use port 443, so let's go ahead and use that one. Actually, this is just the shell. Okay, we want the, so you can see the choices here. This is a simple shell. Okay, these here. That means you're going to get a bash shell or bash shell-like shell on the system. That's great if you can get a shell on that system. But if you can get a meterpreter on that system, then you got a lot more possibilities, because the meterpreter was designed, okay, to be able to run a multitude of scripts and commands that are going to make your life a lot simpler in being able to own that system, right? Now, if you get the shell on, you know, it takes a little bit more work, but not a whole lot, okay? But if we can get the meterpreter on, let's go for that. Let's go with this one right here. Okay, and so I think it's asking us at this point, okay, we selected our, and we want to go ahead and get our APK. Here's our APK right here. And we'll use that. It's generating it. It takes a little while. I'm not sure why it takes so long to do this, because it doesn't seem like it should take that long, but it does. We'll just wait for it. It's going through and doing its work. Had some problems with it, now it's trying again. Debug key, generating one now. What is your first and last name? I'll leave it as unknown. Let's go ahead and leave these all blank. I think the problem is having here is that it wasn't actually a real APK that we were using, so it ended up throwing some errors. Debug key not found. It generated one there though. Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it did its work. Yeah, it did. Okay. It threw some errors, but it's successfully overcame them. It's not going to allow me to not put my first and last name in there. I don't remember it asking me this in previous versions. Okay. Last question defaults to no. Pretty sure. All right, I'm going to go. I guess it's going to make me. I don't know why it would want this information. Okay. But I'll go ahead and give it to it. or I'll give it something. Okay, then go no. Wow, it just keeps on coming back. All right, we got, somebody's got some comments in here. Let me go back. Andrew says, last question where it shows all the unknowns, ask whether the values given are correct, but for some reason the last question defaults. I think you need to type no. Okay, I'll try it. See if it'll type. All right, let's go no. No. Okay, let's go and try yes. It defaults to no. Okay, so if we go yes, all right, there we go. All right. Okay. It's attempting to sign the package with your Android debug. Oh, so it's actually going ahead and creating a certificate. That's what all this is, why it's asking all this information. So it's a self-signed certificate, right? And so failed to verify signed artifacts. It's because those artifacts are made up. Yeah, so it's trying to create a self-signed certificate. Let's go ahead and see whether or not we have something. There's let's go into, looks like this is it right here. Here's our evil droid. Even though we named the payload Hackers Arise, there's our evil droid and it has executable permissions on it. Let's see. Evil APK, change log. And it's usually, it comes back and asks you then if you want to go ahead and collect create a multi-handler. It didn't ask us that, so we'll go ahead and do that anyways. Let's go over to our Metasploit. All right, so what we would do, it looks like it's changed since the last time I've used it. We're going to create essentially a listener where that when we send out that APK to somebody and they click on it, right, then it'll connect back to our system. And the way you do that is you go use multi-handler, right? Okay, send a multi-handler, then you go show options. And what we need to do is to also then set a payload, and the payload has to be set the same as what we embedded there. Okay, so in this case, it'd be Android, Meterpreter, and it'd be reverse HTTPS. Then go show options. And we're going to have to set the L host. Okay, notice see how the L port is set to 8443 by default, so we got to change that. All right, so we can go set the L host to whatever our IP address is here. Let's check and see what it is. Okay, so we'll go set the L host to 192.168.13.131, and then set the L port to 443. And before we go ahead and exploit, just go show options again. Okay, looks like everything's set. We don't have to set the local URI. So we just go exploit, and what it does then is it opens up a listener so that when that APK gets clicked on, when it gets executed, it'll connect back to us. So this means that this has to stay open, right? This has to stay open, and then when the target opens up the APK, it'll open up a a connection, okay, a Meterpreter connection on that system. Now, the Meterpreter for Android is interesting in that it has capabilities that you're not going to see on some of the others Meterpreters. Like it allows you to go ahead and grab SMS messages, contacts, turn on the camera. So a little bit different than what you get in the standard Meterpreter. It's built for Android, so it generally is capable of getting SMS messages. Particularly, sometimes it can't get the contacts, but it can usually get the SMS messages, and it can turn on the camera. So this is one more tool in your toolbox of being able to create a malicious APK file. Now, in reality, what you'd want to do is that you'd probably want to create your own APK, create your own flashlight. This is the world's best flashlight. Of course, it's free, and give it away one way or another. Give it away, put it in. If you can get it into Google's, Play Store, great. If you can get it into on your website and have people download it, okay, and it has this embedded inside of it. You could send it to somebody. You could put it on a flash drive and put it on the phone, what have you, and then you have control over the system. All right, and this is the most common attack against Android devices. All right, let's go ahead and then take down our, and of course there's lots of different shells that you can use as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other attacks against iOS and against Android that are built into Metasploit. Now, if we go over to, let's go open up a browser here, and let's go to ExploitDB before we do that. There's lots of attacks that are out there, but if we go ahead and look for iOS, okay, the Apple operating system, and we go and look for what's out there and available, when you type in iOS, you get all kinds of iOSs, including, in this case, it's Fortis's iOS. You also get Nagios, so it's not necessarily the best search. But even if you go through this, you're finding this mostly going to be DOS attacks. You can see most of these are DOS attacks, right? We really haven't had any good ones lately, except that we know there's 4 of them sitting out there right now that haven't been announced yet, right? So in the last year, these are all DOS attacks, okay? These are all DOS attacks, right? So let's go ahead then and look at Android. And once again, these are DOS attacks, okay? These are local attacks. Here's Blueborn, okay, that we did in class, all right? This is a remote attack. So this is 2 years old, and this is the last attack we really had, or exploit that we really had against Android. And really, it's actually not against Android as much as it works against basically any Bluetooth device, okay? No matter what operating system it's running, all right? But if we go back, here's one remote one here, Outlook for Android, okay? The directory traversal, that's back in 2017. These are all DOS attacks. Now, DOS attacks can be, they can be damaging, right? Somebody knocks out your phone, it's serious stuff, but it's not a remote code execution, right? So let's see what we have built into. Let's start with go search Metasploit, and you'll see some of these that are in there. Okay, search. Let's see, type. I think becoming proficient in searching in Metasploit is key because otherwise you're just kind of wandering around. So let's go exploit, and let's go platform. Okay, and go Android. You see we got 9 exploits. All right. And you can see that most of them are a little bit older. Here's an Adobe Reader from 2014. Here's the stage fright, okay, that affected all Linux and Unix systems. And you'll still find systems that aren't patched for this. So let's take a look at it if you're not familiar with it. Enter, so use, and then go info. And if you're not familiar with this, this was a big deal 5 years ago. This module exploits an integer overflow vulnerability in the stage fright library. The vulnerability occurs when parsing specially crafted MP4 files. So these are, these are video files. That's why it's called stage fright. Okay. While a wide variety of remote attack vectors exist, this particular exploit is designed to work with an HTML5 compliant browser. Exploitation is done by supplying a specially crafted MP4 file with 2 TX3G atoms that, when their sizes are summed, cause an integer overflow when processing the second atom. As a result, the temporary buffer is allocated with insufficient size, and the mem copy call leads to a heap overflow. Once again, there's our buffer overflow. This version of the exploit uses a two-stage information leak based on corrupting the metadata that the browser reads from the media server. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at that one. And let's see what the options are here. Okay, so service host is going to be 000. That's going to be us. The default port is going to be 8080. We can change it to whatever we want. There's the SSL. The SSL certificate doesn't have to be in there. Path to the certificate. And the URI path as well. This would be where the video is actually, the website, the URI where the video is being stored. All right. So we'd want to go ahead and then put some show payloads, some payload here. Otherwise, it's not going to work. All right. And you see it comes back with 10 possible payloads for us. Of course, they're all Linux, okay, payloads. Notice there's Linux on an ARM processor, right? Some of the generic payloads will work as well. This one just adds a user, okay? This one just allows us to execute. Well, you can see this one. Let's go, I'll show you what it does. Set payload. This one just allows you to execute a single command on that system. Linux, and then it's the ARM, and exec. And then do show options. So here's the single command. So what it'll do is it'll put a payload on there, and all you can do is go ahead and run a single command. Right? So that might be useful, okay? But it's not going to give you a lot of capabilities on that system. Let's go back and try to show payloads again. Add user will add a user, and that might be useful because then once you have a user on there, then of course you can just log into that user. Let's see. There is no reverse HTTPS. We have reverse TCP. Let's do that. But notice also that there is no interpreter for this. Okay, none of these are interpreter. Oh, there is one right here. Yeah, here's an interpreter right there. Let me stand corrected on that. Okay, let's go put that one in. All right, and then show options. And so all we would need to do then is to, what this does is it opens up a web server, okay? So what it does is it opens up a web server, and then you can go ahead and put in the video, or it would put the video in for you at that URI path. So we can go say, let's set the URI path, okay? And we'll set it to, okay, we'll call it hackers arise, videos. Okay, now go show options. And there it is. So this is where we would go ahead. That's where the malicious MP4 is going to be stored at. So the idea is to get somebody to click on that URI. That will then download the malicious MP4, which will then spawn your interpreter prompt on that system. So all thing we do is go set lhost, and the lhost for us is going to be 192.168, whatever it was, I've forgotten already. Let's go ifconfig. Yeah, 1331. Okay, set lhost 192.168, 1331. Now notice that there is no rhost, right? Because what we're doing is we're trying to entice somebody to click on this URI. All right, so it's a matter of sending out this, getting somebody to click on it, and then when they click on it, it'll go ahead and execute the payload on their system. So when we do exploit on it, okay, see, it says its server is started, okay, and there is a URL right there at Hackers Arise Videos. Notice it's using port 8080. And so when you can get that next step would be to send that out to somebody, right? And then they click on it and they get the malicious MP4, and you get the interpreter on their system. So that's one way of doing it. And that one, that's 5 years ago. Recent surveys have shown that there's still a lot of systems that are not patched for stage fright, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. And if you're doing a pen test, you want to make sure that all of the Android devices, and it also applies to iOS devices too, because iOS also have that same stage fright. Anything that's running a version of Linux has that vulnerability. Let's go and do search again. Type exploit, platform, Android. And see, here's a new one here. 2018 is pretty new, right? Here's that Allwinner backdoor that I was referring to. I could never get my old Allwinner notebook to boot back up, so I'm able to demonstrate that one, unfortunately. It's a small subset of all the Android devices that were made. Well, I think they were all made in 2016 or 2015. Okay, and it's primarily an issue in China, but I happen to have one that was made in China. So let's go and look at this one right here. Actually, I've never used this one before. Let's take a look at what this is. It's a multi. It's not explicitly for Android. Let's see what it does. All right. Architecture. Look at all the architects. They work on just basically every architecture. Platform is Android, Apple iOS, BSD, Java, JavaScript, Linux, OS X. It'll work on anything. It's called steamed hams. The rank is relatively low, which means it doesn't work all the time. Okay. And there's a YouTube video here. Is this a joke? Let's take a look at it and see. So we'll have a browser and take a look at it. That's maybe why I've never heard of it. Sometimes Metasploit actually the guys who do this think they're funny, and they'll put stuff in here that is a joke, and this might be it. But I've never heard of it. It doesn't mean it's not real. It just means I've never heard of it. So I was kind of surprised to see it there. I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised if this is a joke. And we go to the YouTube video. It's like, you fell for it. Let's see. Usually those references are not YouTube videos. Instead, yeah, it is a joke. It's a Simpsons cartoon. I'm not sure what the relevance is, other than somebody thought this was funny. Not getting any video or any sound out. All right, well, that's why I never heard of it before, because it's somebody's idea of a joke. All right. Let's go back and look at other ones that might be useful to us. Stage fright basically hit almost every Unix and Linux operating system. Here's the file format Adobe Reader. This would be a file format issue where you send an Adobe PDF and take over the system. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one. Let's go info. So Adobe Reader versions less than 11.2 exposes insecure native interfaces to untrusted JavaScript in a PDF. This module embeds the browser exploit from Android WebView add JavaScript interface into a PDF to get a command shell on our vulnerable versions of Reader. Okay, you can see here's the options that we have. There's the file name. Of course, you probably want to change that. The encoder is going to be ASCII hex. Okay, these are all set for you. The method is going to be document, the filter, the obfuscate is set to true. Let's go show payloads. Only 3 payloads will work in this case, all right? And notice there's no interpreter in this case, all right? In that you only have a bind shell, okay? So a bind shell here, reverse here. If you can get the reverse, that means it's going to call back to you. So let's go ahead and set the payload there to generic. And notice this is not an interpreter, it's simply a shell. Reverse TCP. And then go show options. And we just have to set our L host. 192.168. What, 13.131? Is that what it was? Yeah. And the other thing we want to do is change the PDF name. Okay, so we go set file name to, let's see, quarterly sales report. Okay, .pdf. That sounds legitimate. Or you can make it anything you want, depending upon, once again, this is kind of a social engineering attack, so you'd want to tailor it to whoever it was going to. You know, if it was say an invoice, or you can make it a purchase order. This is one thing I get a lot in my spam, is people send me, here's a purchase order for whatever product that is, right? Purchase. And they want you to click on it, okay? Because it's like this is something they want to buy from you, right? So if you're a business and somebody sends you a purchase order, this is a good thing, right? It's a purchase order, and then what they'll do often is put in like a date on it, okay? Like 09/27, 2019, which purchase orders have, right? And then go PDF. Now, if that goes out to a business, and and there's somebody who's looking for orders, they might open it, right? And then let's go show options. If it's somebody within an organization where they're expecting a quarterly sales report, okay? I think I've mentioned a few times that the idea of when I got that one Verizon bill, right? That I almost opened it. They sent me a Verizon bill. They sent me an email that said, here's your Verizon bills enclosed, right? So, once again, we could change the name, set the file name. This is what people do, right? To your September 2019 Verizon bill, okay, .pdf. Then go show options. And there's my Verizon bill, all right? And then I go ahead and exploit. So it's gone ahead and created it, and there's the document right there. It's at, notice it's at root.msf4. Because it has a dot before it, that's a hidden directory, right? So let's go there and see if it's there. It should be at root. So dot msf4 local, and that's usually when Metasploit creates documents. This is usually where it puts it. All right. I just want to go to that directory. Go there. Good. All right. And there it is. All right. So I could send that as an attachment to an email. Okay, here's your, with a nice little HTML email like I got. It looks, it's easy enough to go ahead and copy, the real thing, and then put a link in to this bill. Here it is. You can go view your bill, and then they click on it, and then you have a shell on their system. All right. So let's see, what else do we have that will work? And this is a multi-handler there. We use that. Okay. Here's the stage fright. This one's a little different here. This one's the web view. Let's try this. Let's take a look at this one. 2012. All right, this module exploits a privilege escalation issue in Android before 4.2's WebView component that arises when untrusted JavaScript code is executed in a web view that has one or more interfaces added to it. The untrusted JavaScript code can call into the Java reflection APIs exposed by the interface and execute arbitrary commands. So, there's a number of different ways to execute. There's not that many exploits in Metasploit for taking over Android or iOS. Like I said, probably the most widely used are going to be embedded in, or malware is embedded into a APK. Now, there's always the possibility of physical attack, right? If you have access to the phone, to be able to go ahead and simply put in the malware onto the phone via USB connection, right? Just like you can put in any system, and then you can control it from there. Okay, and of course there's a number of services that will give you malware. I mean, there's, believe it or not, it's a legitimate business that let me quickly look it up and I'll put it up on the screen for you. There's a number of legitimate businesses that basically will give you malware. Of course, they don't call it malware, to allow you to track, okay, the phone and track everything that's going on. It's kind of controversial. But they are making money and they are doing it, and businesses are buying it, okay, to track their employees, what have you. All right, I'll pull it up on the screen here in just a minute as soon as I get the URL for you. So it's not unheard of. It's okay. Let's open up here and let's go to, this is the largest company in this business. It's called FlexiSpy. All right. The world's most powerful monitoring software for computers, mobile phones, and tablets. All right. And so here it's showing using it to track, the child's, okay, phone. Yeah, it's been gotten controversial because it's being used for tracking spouses and what have you. It's largely used by businesses to track their employees, but it's being used for a lot of purposes. And basically all it is basically it's a payload it's an application that you put in to the system, okay, and it just tracks everything on that system. So here's just showing you this is what it does. It takes all the information and puts it onto FlexiSpy's server, and then you connect to their server. All right. You can even spoof SMS on that system. Okay. So once you have control over it, you can go ahead from the person's system, you can send SMS messages to it. Okay. So you're using their system to send text messages. And I've actually installed this on a system to test it out, and it does work. It does work. I think they're charging about $300 a year or something like that for it, and it's a viable business. There's they charge, last time I checked it was like $350 a year. There's a free one called TruthSpy, and I've tested this one out as well. Download and install the TruthSpy. Okay. And this one doesn't have as many features, but you can get it for free. And it does track location, and it does, look at the features here. Okay. The free version will track the SMS messages. You can record calls, you can get GPS tracking on it. All right. And so basically all it is an APK, right? It's just an APK, like we talked about, with a payload in it, okay, that then communicates back to the server of this company right here, and then they give you, okay, Andrew says you might need to type yes. That's that older comment. Okay. They give you access to their server that is collecting all this information. That's an older comment. Thank you. So these are legitimate businesses, okay, that are basically creating malicious APKs that you install on the system and track the user. Okay. You can listen in on their phone calls, track their movements, and this is a legitimate business. Because they sell it as a safety feature, like I want to track my kids, so they don't do stupid things, or whatever. They don't get themselves in trouble on the net. That's how they sell it. Okay. The way it's being used is quite different. Okay. Yeah, have a good lawyer and reword it, as Vadim says. Yeah, they covered themselves by making it seem like they're doing a positive service. Now, I'm sure that it is being used some ways positive. I know that there are some companies who use this to track their employees, right? So, and it's not visible to the employee, so it's a hidden app, and it can, and it's legitimate because the company owns the phone, right? If a company owns the phone, they can put whatever they want on it, right? And so they put this on the phone, and so it's a way of tracking, whether or not how you're using the company phone, what messages you're sending, how much you're goofing off. If you're a delivery person, for instance, it will track all your steps and what have you to make sure you're not sitting around in the coffee shop eating donuts. Okay, so there are some legitimate, and that's the way they sell it. Okay. All right, let's see. This is Vadim says many will have you sign a disclosure. You can't sue them for yes. Basically, you can't. It's not a crime or privacy violation to track spouse or kids or employees. Well, okay. Cunley asked a really important question, and basically, first of all, Vadim says many will have you sign a disclosure, and you can't sue them for privacy invasion. Basically, if it's their devices, then anything that's on those systems is theirs, right? If they put it on your phone, that's another thing, okay? But if they give you a phone and say, here, this is for company business, this phone, and we all know people, right, who have two phones at least, right? They're always carrying two phones. One's a company phone, one's a personal phone, right? So they only do business on one phone and do personal stuff on the other phone. That company phone can have something like this on it and track everything you do. Okay, that is legal and legitimate because it's their property. And you probably signed a disclosure form when you went to work there, right? So even the stuff that's on your computer at work is theirs. It's their network, right? Now, it's quite different if they go ahead and put it on your personal stuff. So it kind of then goes, is it not a crime or privacy violation to track spouse or kids or employees? Employees, we address that. Okay. Kids, no, because they are minors and you have a right to know what they're doing. Spouse, that's a whole nother issue. Yeah, and that's where there has been legal ramifications of this. Okay. So where they've gone ahead and put, a husband puts it on his wife's phone or a wife puts it on her spouse's phone because they suspect something's going on that's illegitimate or they don't like, then this is where these companies have, crossed some lines. But they always, say, well, we can't control how people use it, right? We sell it for legitimate and positive purposes, and if people use it for other things, that's not something that we can control. But the husband or the spouse may have liabilities, okay, by going ahead and putting on their wife's phone. Now, there are these legal issues about whether or not spouses can sue each other, right? And so it's a delicate area, right? While they're married, at least. If they're not married, then yeah, there's no issue there. They can sue each other. But if they're married, then it's community property. The phone is owned by both of them. Okay, so I can do whatever I want with my phone. Would be the defense, right? So everything's community property in a marriage. Everybody owns everything, right? So let's go ahead and so yeah, it's a dicey area of the law, but I wanted to show you this because you may run into an employer who does this, okay? And basically, they've created a business, and it's a successful and prosperous business out of doing essentially what we just got done doing. We're doing it thinking about it being illegal or what have you, but really there are legal ways of doing this, right? There are legal ways. You can create this. And what they've done is simply create like a meterpreter, right? That you put it into an APK, and then it reports back to this company's server, and then they give you a connection to that server into a private area in that server where all the data is stored. Okay, and then you can go ahead and use that particular meterpreter payload on that machine. All right, this one, if you want to play around with this one, I think they have a free. Let's see, I think they used to have a free one. I remember I downloaded it for free. Yeah, here's the and basically what you do is you go ahead and I've read and understand the terms and conditions. It'd be interesting to read those. Let's see what the terms and conditions are. All right, this is how they cover their butt. All right, let's see if we can see how they. Got to be using Android over 4.1. This gives you all the browsers. Users obligations. Okay, here's the user's obligation. The users undertake to use the application and the site in good faith, in accordance with the provisions of these T&Cs, in keeping with the applicable laws. So you're saying I've agreed to not break any laws. Moreover, the users must not, under any circumstance, jeopardize intellectual property rights, jeopardize the application or the site. Okay, let's read this whole one in. Jeopardize the application or the site, and in particular use a process designed to distort, alter, modify, disassemble any protocols, communications such as computer viruses, Trojan horses, worms, malicious code, etc. Alter or attempt to alter the functionality, availability of the application. Engage in activities that infringe the privacy of other people, such as stealing the identity of another person. Modify, intercept, or monitor any correspondence or communication that's not destined for them. Okay. Anyway, so you can see that they cover themselves. Okay. They're basically saying you cannot use this for illegal purposes or invasion of privacy. So when somebody tries to sue them, they say, look, here it is in the end user agreement. You agreed that you would not use it for illegal purposes or for invasion of privacy. Okay. So if you did that, you violated the terms of our agreement. All right. And let's look at the prices again. So it's maybe they don't have a free one anymore. Okay. It was a few years ago. I installed this on my own phone to test it out. And you can see there's different packages here. So the gold package is going to run you close to $400 a year. Then you get all of these juicy features. Actually, you can get it for a year for $185. See, you can wipe the phone data. Wow. A SIM change notification, live and record audio, Skype messages, Hangouts, WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, listen to voice recordings, view photos, view the internet browsing history. Okay, so it's a legitimate way to hack mobile devices. Okay, and these folks are making good money doing this. On that note, let's go ahead and take our 15-minute break. Come back at 30 minutes after the hour. I got 15 minutes after the hour, and we'll talk some more about mobile hacking and security. We're going to resume class in about 2 minutes. Make your last run to the bathroom, coffee, whatever you need. We'll get started again in about 2 minutes. Okay, hopefully everybody's had adequate time to stretch their legs and use the bathroom. Now that we have taken some time to look at multitude of ways that the mobile device is at risk, okay, and the mobile device can be attacked, let's take a few minutes to look at some of the best practices in being able to secure a mobile device, as well as best practice of how you would go about securing your institutions or whoever has contracted with you to secure their mobile network. All right, so that's what we're going to do next. And let me get this up here. Mobile device security best practices. This is a mobile device hacking and security. So let's take at least a few minutes to talk about what we can do to secure those devices. And like I said earlier, there's some attacks, like for instance, the SS7 and the Stingray attacks. There's really not a whole lot that you can do, okay, as either a security practitioner or as an individual, all right? That's really outside the realm of what's possible. But we can control certain things to make our devices and our institution more secure, all right? One of the things that I would point out is that it makes your job a lot simpler, a lot easier if the institution, once again, thinking about a company, institution, basically focuses on one operating system and one device, right? Because once again, you get this fragmentation, and if you get that fragmentation, it makes it really, really hard to be able to secure all the different operating systems and different versions and different apps that are on those phones, okay? So one of the first things you want to do is to get the company to try to focus on a single device, single operating system, single carrier, and single manufacturer. Otherwise, you're going to be running willy-nilly trying to patch all those different devices. All right, best practices then. Nope, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to hit just once. Regularly, like we do in any IT environment, okay, the first rule is always to regularly update the operating system and the apps, okay, patch, right? This is probably the most important thing we can do, right? And we were talking the other day about the fact that I am guilty, and some others admitted to being guilty as well, as not patching. In a corporate environment, that's not an option, all right? If I don't patch my phone, then I will bear the consequences on myself. If I don't patch my corporate phone, then the whole company might bear the consequences. That's not an option. So new vulnerabilities are always discovered, and vendors work to patch their applications and software as soon as they're available. For iOS, users can check for system updates under Settings, General, and Software Update. Android can do it under Settings, About, System Update. Use the relevant built-in security features. Okay, they're there for a reason. All right, you can improve your mobile device's security by using the built-in anti-theft apps like Find My iPhone. This app can help you locate your phone, track where it is, where it's been, and remotely erase data in case you can't recover the device. Users can activate this feature under Settings, Accounts, Passwords, iCloud, Find My iPhone, in the case of an iPhone. Minimize location access. Okay, location services or settings, which are usually part of the quick settings feature in iOS and Android, allow apps and websites to use information from your cellular, Wi-Fi, GPS networks, and Bluetooth to determine a user's approximate location, which could be a cause for concern, right? But so if you have these apps, okay, on your phone that have access to your location services, one of the things you can do is simply select while using the app instead of always, all right? And even if you turn off location services, then it'll still give pretty relatively precise information on your whereabouts, okay? So when allowing permission for location access for iOS devices, it's recommended to only select a while using instead of always. I've not seen this on Android. It may be there, but I'm not aware of it, as it prevents a malware-ridden app running in the background from stealing a device's location information. Avoid connecting to unsecured Wi-Fi networks, okay? Turn off the automatic Wi-Fi connection. This is something that I do, okay, on a regular basis. I don't allow my phone to connect to automatically connect any Wi-Fi connection. On your smartphones or tablets, users should refrain from connecting to public hotspots as they're not secure, and connecting them can expose the device to a multitude of risks, okay? If connecting is necessary, avoid logging into key accounts or financial services. Setting up a VPN is also a good way to secure the data sent and received online. Number 5, download apps only from trusted sources. And this is what we were trying to get around, right? By being able to embed malware inside of an app, right? In general, those apps are not going to make their way into those trusted sources like the Apple Store or Google Play. They do on occasion, but even like the spying apps that we were just looking at, they're not available on those app stores. Those have to be installed, through their website and downloaded, right? So according to an Android security review, okay, this is from Google, potentially harmful apps are still the biggest threat to Android users. And of course, this is actually a bit of an indictment of Google themselves. So they're actually saying, this is our problem because they allow these malicious apps to get into their Google store. They admit that this is the most harmful, most prevalent security threat to Android devices, right? Certain third-party app stores have proven to be more likely carriers of malicious apps, so always download from trusted sources. But they do get into Google Play as well, okay? But they're more likely to come from other sources as well, or downloading them directly from a website. Users should also do their due diligence and check reviews or comments on the app page to make sure it's legitimate. Users who use mobile payment and popular gaming apps should also be cautious as they have become hot cyber criminal targets in the past. Know the risk of jailbreaking and rooting. We talked about that on day 1, right? Manufacturers place security restrictions and safeguards on their devices to protect the user's devices and data, okay? In some cases, the device has to be jailbroke or root to put on certain applications on it. Jailbreaking or rooting removes the limitations, leaving the system more vulnerable to malware and other threats. Number 7, be wary of unsolicited calls or messages. I don't know about you guys, but I get spam on my SMS, okay? And they often come with malicious URLs, right? So this has been a hot area of lately. So I get these unsolicited, and basically I don't open any of them, but I get one or two a day. Okay, I don't know how people have gotten my number, but yeah, Vadim says we have reports here all the time. Yeah, I get these basically spam with malicious links on my phone all the time, and I don't know how they got my number. Maybe they're just sending them out to millions of phone numbers, just randomly. Attackers use a variety of methods to get users to download malware to reveal personal information. Now, we were just looking at some of the hacking attacks, right? And that's essentially what they're doing, right? Is that what we were just doing just a minute ago in creating a malicious website? Remember the one we were doing, Hackers Arise movies or videos or what have you, or the PDF? We can go ahead, if we can get them to download it, if they can get you to download it, then they've got control over your system. Scan or verify any messages, calls, or emails from unknown senders. Basically, I don't even take phone calls from people who are not in my system. Okay, I get so many telemarketing calls and so many scams coming on my phone that I just don't even answer them. Set automatic locks on mobile devices. Ensure that the mobile device locks automatically and has a strong passcode. A simple pattern and a swipe password isn't much of a deterrent. It's usually pretty easy to detect. All somebody has to do is see you opening up your phone, and if it's a simple swipe, once they physically get your phone, then it's going to be easy enough to enter it. If a device is lost or stolen, a strong password prevents anyone from quickly peeking at personal or stealing personal information. The use of a biometric authentication feature such as fingerprint scanner or facial recognition makes unlocking the device much more convenient and the security harder to crack. Number 9, limit the personal information given to apps and websites. This is a good rule for everybody in everything, right? If you're security conscious, be careful what you give out, okay? Be careful what you post on your LinkedIn profile. Be careful what you put on your Facebook page, right? And same thing applies to our mobile devices. Signing up for a new service or downloading a new app sometimes requires personal information. Okay? If it doesn't seem like it's necessary, okay, then don't give it. That's just a good rule. Just think about, is this necessary? Should I be giving them this information? Especially if it's free, right? If it's free, then they're going to want your information. And of course, that can lead to them selling your information. And that may be their business model, right? Be wary of revealing too much and research on how secure the application or site is before logging into it. 10, manage what is shared online. Make sure you use privacy settings on social media apps and sites, okay? Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, we know that people like Facebook and others are selling our information, okay? I've become pretty negative on Facebook. It's just not it's not a wise way. If you're security conscious, okay, it's not a good way to operate in the world. To basically put your information out there for Facebook to sell or for other people to use. Some sites can broadcast location, email, phone numbers, and more to the public by default. Okay. You ever remember if you've been on LinkedIn? It always bothers me that on LinkedIn they always want to use my contacts, right? And then try to create more links to my LinkedIn site. Okay. I don't like them using my contacts. I don't like them knowing who's on my contact list. And lastly, use mobile security solutions. Okay. Install antivirus on that system. Right? Even though for years they told us antivirus wasn't necessary on your phone, use a VPN. especially if it's being used for sensitive information like logging into your bank or logging into the corporate network. Use blacklists of malicious sites. Many of the antivirus softwares have blacklists that'll keep you and warn you before going to what they have. They basically track these malicious sites that have malware on them, most of which are in China, right? And they'll simply, warn you before you go to the sites where you're going to end up downloading some malware. All right. So, are there any questions, folks? If there's not, I want to thank you for attending the mobile hacking and security course. Hopefully you got some idea of the security vulnerabilities of these systems, and from a broad perspective, from many different perspectives. I just want to let you know that coming up next month is coming around, almost October, right? We have the Advanced Linux course coming up, okay? That was a course that was scheduled in August, I believe, and there was not much interest in it. There is now, so that course will run. And there's also the Advanced Metasploit course. Okay, both these are advanced courses running in October. So hopefully I'll see you all there. So those are going to be back-to-back, the middle 2 weeks in, I think, like the 13th through 15th for advanced Linux, and then the next week for advanced Metasploit. To take the advanced Metasploit course, I really recommend that you take the regular Metasploit Kung Fu course, because otherwise you're not going to get a whole lot out of it, okay? So hopefully I'll see you on one of those two courses, and thanks for coming. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks, Vadim. Thanks, all of you. Kunli, let's see, who's here? Kunli, Ibrahim, Javier, and Vadim. Thanks for coming, guys. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.